Hi guys, we're here. Come on in, guys. Get started. It's cool, chilly. Give it a couple of minutes.
The reality show, the female artist, the competition show.
The countdown is on for the People's Choice Awards. The people have.
And was very huffy about the whole thing because at that point I thought she had flipped into trying to play to the audience. So I emptied the whole building, had not one person.
Okay, let me get started. All right. I'm not sure. Well, I'm quite sure many of you have saw where Trump was at the Black Leadership Summit, and there was a lot of Black youth wearing the MAGA "Make America Great Again" hats, and again, a lot of us in the Black community is upset with our youths and them supporting Trump and wearing his hat. So I ask, and this is going to be a short video, but I implore you to think about where is that actually coming from? You know, where could that actually be coming from? All right. Hold on. Okay. I had to respond to something. Where could that be coming from? You know, do understand that our youths are they're stepping into the roles of leadership, and they're seeing that things are not going the way that they wanted to go. All right. What we should do is guide them. Okay. What we also do too often is go from one extreme to the next. It's polarity. It's either black or white, hot, cold. You know, we don't understand as a nation. Let me close the door some because it's a bit cool. As a nation, we don't understand that there is such thing as a happy medium. There is such thing as in between. There are such thing as nuances and complexity. and all of those things that help to make up the whole and that help to provide the stumbling blocks, if you will, or provide the lessons for us to learn, if you will. So what's happening here is our youths are tired of seeing that they're not getting the access to the privileges that America has to offer. And they're tired of the Democrats not being assertive enough and forceful enough to speak for that on our behalf. All right. Yeah, I love the Democratic Party. Hold on a second. I'm going to go get some coffee, right? I'm going to quit talking for a minute so you can hear me. Hold on. Okay. Okay. They're tired of not having access, as I said before, and the Democratic Party has not been assertive enough. Yes, the Dems have pushed for some things for the Black community, but are those things like the programs that we have, is that really beneficial to the Black community? Let's think about it. Now, I understand that a lot in the Black community, a lot of us have, lived the downtrodden life. A lot of us are struggling and, need help as far as the WIC programs and the welfare and that sort of things, to help us with rent, Section 8 and all of that other stuff, right? It benefits to a certain extent, but it also helped to keep the Black community dependent upon those types of programs. And there aren't any other programs that give them enlightenment and empowerment on the fact that they can do better. So what we have is a percentage of people who are dependent upon these types of programs that are not learning that they can get themselves out of the conditions that they are in and push for a better life where they no longer need those types of programs. And that's what the Black community, many of us in the Black community, is starting to get disappointed and tired of. All right. You had Trump that came in and he started to cut services. People are angry. Now, I understand why they're angry, why he cut services, because he did not implement anything to offset those some of those services or the extent of those services that he's cutting. There's no offset for it. So it's like, if this is my place, this is where I stay, you saying that you want to take me out of this place, but then you don't provide me with information and a way to go and get somewhere else to live. So then where am I going to live? Where I'm just going to sleep in my car out in the street until I'm able to find somewhere to live? So that's how that's happening, which is why I understand how others in the Black community feel about him cutting those programs and certain services. Hold on. But the money that are in these grants, I think I'm going to close. I closed that door some. It's still chilly. I'm going to let the fresh air come in. But however, the money that are in those grants, which provide those services for the Black community, why can't we take that same money and flip it towards entrepreneurship programs? Flip it towards just giving grants to the very same people that you give those grants in the Section 8 to, provided that they living a certain type of way or they're making a certain type of money. Why don't you just make it easily accessible for those of us within the Black community to apply for those grants if we say we want to start our own business. If all we can provide, if all, provided that we provide you with a tax ID number and our business name, all the information that it takes to register our business in the city and state in which we live, so long as we have all of that, make it easily accessible for us to get grants so that we can sustain ourselves while we work in our entrepreneurship and in our business. I think that makes much better sense. Here's why. Because there's nothing wrong with our thought process, our creativity. We can build, we can create things, we can solve problems. There's a lot, and of course, everyone doesn't have it in them to be an entrepreneur. So no, everyone is not going to be an entrepreneur. All right, so I'm going to get on the rest of what I think we can do with these grants moving forward. However, for those of us like myself, I'm an entrepreneur and I struggle to make ends meet, pay my bills and those sort of things, because I compete with the big guys. Let me just explain my program. I have a self-wealth mentorship program. That's the name of it. Self-wealth, meaning that I help provide information so that people can learn and gain a wealth of information of themselves. Okay, because true self-love, true self-worth stems from having a wealth of information of who you are as an individual. My program is based off of 3 pillars: self-awareness, self-enlightenment, self-empowerment. Okay, 3 pillars. All right. If I was to have a grant easily accessible to me so that I can work my program, I wouldn't be struggling. You would see me every day in different halfway homes, because here's the thing, that halfway homes love my program, but they don't pay outside businesses and outside entities to come in and run programs at their facility. Like, you have to be an employee with their facility. And I'm not an employee at any of these facilities. However, they love the program. So if I was able to have that type of money where I could sustain myself, there would be no problem with me providing information and documentation on the places that I visited running my program. They would have no problems with me coming in. I've heard it time and time again. They just don't pay. There's tons of places for me to go, but they won't pay. And that is the challenge because I have to still sustain myself. And I'm also a sole proprietorship. I am not a nonprofit. I chose the sole proprietorship route. That's the route that a lot of wealthy people go. And even your Caucasian business owners, they tell you your first business should be a profitable business. And your second business should be like a runoff of your profit. That's where you create the nonprofit, and the nonprofit gives back on behalf of what your profit is doing. Okay, so I've learned that by taking business courses at the Jacob Javits Center. They would have those business courses every year between spring and summer. And I went a couple of years back to back to those, and I've heard the same thing. I have the whole structure. In those business courses, I've learned that you should make sure you go to your CPA 4 times a year so you can pay your taxes and have all of that done and documented within the year, so you don't have to feel the brunt of having to pay and deal with all of that at the end of the year as a business owner. So I have all of that here. That's not the problem. The challenge is getting the funds to sustain myself so that I can go and empower and enlighten those who really need the empowerment and enlightenment. Okay. Now, I'm not the only entrepreneur that's struggling, and I live here in Newark, New Jersey. I'm not the only entrepreneur who thinks this, who says this, right? That's something that our melanated African American or Black youth are thinking about. Some of them may not be able to articulate themselves properly or in the right way, because a lot of times we're caught up in the excitement and in the hype. But them and people supporting Trump is basically on that behalf, is basically to get a conduit to having better information and access to all that America affords its people, that America says that America is about. Now, I understand where the elders are coming from and the rest of the Black community is coming from, and I'm there with you too, okay? Trump, however, has yet to address any of the hate crime, any of those hate groups, any of the KKK. There have been police brutality. Police have been killing Black people for no reason whatsoever. None of those things are addressed thus far under Trump's leadership. So it leaves us to say, listen, do you think or do you consider us as human beings? Because you're not saying anything about the situation. So this is where I say again, where we deal in things with polarity. It's either this or that, yin or yang, X or Y, and that's not how it is, right? We know that's not how it is because there's no such thing as hot only, right? When you boil water, before it gets to scorching hot, it goes through all the phases. It goes through all the phases. It start off cold, then it gets warm, then it gets warmer, then it gets warmer, then it gets hot, then it gets hotter, then it gets hotter, then it gets hotter before it gets to scorching and boiling. With anything in life, there is an in-between. There are like steps. Before you get to the height of anything, you have to start from below and work your way up with anything. However, when it comes to ideologies, when it comes to social ills, when it comes to issues that has to be solved, we don't understand that in between still is necessary and still should be taken into account. We think that it's either this or that, and that is to our detriment. That does us nothing. There's no positivity that comes out of that, because you don't allow for the fact that you can support one idea of a person and not support the other idea of a person. But and the way the mass is thinking, this is both Black and white people. White people, you guys say that you're better than Black people, but you're no better because you do the same thing. What I see with us, it's like we're brother and sister that just don't like each other, and you just keep doing this. So much so that you forget that the rest of the world exists. You forget about the Indians, you forget about the Latinos, you forget about the Arabs. You don't care. It's just the Black and the whites that just keep doing this, fighting. And it's just ridiculous because you sound like children. Everybody sounds like children when it comes to this issue. And what's sad is that a lot of people are losing their lives. A lot of people are getting incarcerated when they should not be. A lot of people are dealing with issues that has infringed on their lives in such terrible ways because of this same thing that's going on. And we're so caught up in ego, fighting, not liking each other, polarity, that we're not taking the time to step back and say, okay, wait a minute, what can we do to change all of this that's happening? All right, and that's an issue that we need to start looking into so we can correct starting from now. Okay, if we wish to see the change that we want to see. All right, let me close this down because it is pretty chilly. Okay, and hold on. I'll open it back up later. All right. That's if we want the world to be see a change in the world and see a difference in the world. All right. Yeah, for the rest of the funds, for those who are not entrepreneurs, grants should go towards college. For those who want to go to college, for those who are struggling, you can keep that same system, let them get on their feet. And once they get on their feet, okay, grants to taking a course to learning a trade, because here's the thing. once you have the grant out there and the money is there, they spend the money on the respective thing that they're looking for. Okay, so should that person, let me give you an example of what I'm saying, trying to say here. Let's say my same self-wealth course, and there's someone who the government gives a grant to self-development, and that person joins my course paid by the government. I will not concern myself with saying, oh no, you don't belong to sit in my group because your grant or your money comes from the government. No, because the government still paid for it, whether the money came out of your individual pocket or whether it came from a grant from the government, it was still paid for. So I'm not, concerning myself with where the money is coming from, just as long as there's some integrity behind the funds. You get what I'm saying? So I say this to say, I don't think anyone out there is really concerning themselves with saying, oh no, the money is grant money. It didn't come, you didn't work for it. It didn't come from you. I don't think there's a person out there that's like that. So my question is, why can't we think as people in those positions on how to delegate and divvy up the funds for the betterment of the people? Okay, but just keeping the welfare system, the same system that we have, with no information on enlightenment and empowerment is not working. It's not working, and that's what those youths are supporting when they're wearing that MAGA, Make America Great Again hat. They're supporting that idea, okay? But I'm going to go back to saying this again before I go on to 50 Cent with Ja Rule. The problem with that is that they're afraid to touch on the topic of racism, cruelty, hate crime, and what's been happening to Black people at the hands of police officers and other white people. In light of supporting Trump and the idea of progression from a professional level, they're not trying to talk about this other issue. And that, again, like I said again, is the challenge with people in the world, where they don't understand that it's okay for you to support one part of a person's idea and say, listen, but we also need to be handling and taking care of this. Okay? And the challenge with that is that many people don't like to be challenged because that's ego, Many people think that a lot of what they do is right, and they know, and a lot of them know that a lot of what they do is wrong towards some people, and they don't care, and they don't want to be challenged. So the problem you have is when people support people like that, or when they support people who they think are like that, they aid and play in the distress that's going on by not holding that person accountable, like Trump, by not holding Trump accountable for stepping up and speaking to the police officers in the KKK and for all the treachery that's been going on against people with color. And that's the problem, where you guys have to grow some courage to talk about that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? We have to do away with this one-track mind way of seeing things, of only from polarity. Polarity is not the only thing. Polarity is one extreme to the other. Polarity is freezing to burning. Polarity is ice to water. But we know that there's other things exist in between that are in the very same realms that are of lesser degree, or let me say not intense in that very same realm. Like there's cool, right? There's cold, but then there's not freezing. There's cold, and then there's colder. Like 30 degrees is cold, but 20 degrees is colder. Then 10 degrees is colder than that. But what about minus 20 degrees? You get what I'm saying? There's degrees and levels to everything. So, and polarity, again, before I move on to the next topic, is not serving us the type of justice that we're looking for. It's not. And it's time to start really looking at things from a different perspective and take in complexity, take in the nuances, and see what we can work with, having those and put those on the table. They belong on the table. You know, people too often would just want to see the end result. They want to see a rainbow. I don't care about nothing else. All I care about is that, you know, this house get built. Well, you know, we all want to build a house. You see what I'm saying? However, the nuance may be that we just found out that this land is somewhat on a hill, and the type of sand or earth matter that's a part of this land doesn't keep still. It's kind of rocky and shaky. So before we start to put the foundation, what could we do to stop this land from shifting and shaking? Because if we don't do that, we'll build a house, but your house will fall apart in a couple of years. You see what I'm saying? Those are the nuances that take time to solve. And you have some people in the world that's like, I don't care. All I want to see is the house. You know, I don't care what you're telling me, just get it done. Right. We all want to get it done, but it's imperative that you understand what's at stake here, so you understand that it takes some time to even solve that, if that can be solved. Because we can still build a house, but maybe not here. We may have to go someplace else, and that needs to be discussed. You see what I'm saying? I think people are too caught up in, there's some people now in the world who are too caught up in the nuance. Let a nuance take place, or a complex matter take place, and you know, they give up hope. The fight is over, and it's like, oh, I can't do it. You know, this is happening, and their brains shut down. So you have some people who wants to offset that, and they're the extreme opposite as far as, listen, I don't care about none of that, just get it done. But none of that's healthy. None of that's healthy. It's not healthy for the person who shuts down the moment there is a nuance, and it's not healthy for the person who says, screw the nuances, get it done, and I don't want to hear about the nuances. Okay, we need the people. We need people the people on deck with their hands in the pot that says, yeah, these nuances are here. They have to be discussed, because we have to find the best resolve. And when that happens, we're going to continue to do what we have to do. We can't let this stop us. We need more people with that thought process to be a part of the game. But you know what happens with those people? A lot of those people are like me. We go off to do our own thing, and we don't really participate in groupthink and mass resolve, because we don't do well in groupthink and mass resolve, because people are so hard-headed. So what's so ironic is the people who are a part of the groupthink and mass resolve are the ones that you hear the most, because they're part of the mass. They're part of the mass. However, they're still unable at this time to solve the problems that has been in existence in great ways. And then you have those of us who will go off and do our own things, who you could see have shifted the paradigm and have solved those if you pay attention to what they're doing, have their paradigm on a larger scale, and you'll see how that one person who have that thought process of taking everything into account, if you allow their system to reign within a couple of years, you'll see the world shift, the paradigm shift, and things change for the better for the majority of people. All right? Because that's the type of change and shift that they have happening in their life right now, and the people that's a part of it, the things that they're doing. Okay, just so you guys pay attention. All right, and that's what I wanted to say about that. Did I mention about I did mention about those funds, government grants and funds that if it's, you know, not for entrepreneurship, school and so what. And there's somebody that's going to say, well, those grants do exist. However, those grants do exist, and you do have to go through a lot of red tape and paperwork and putting things together. It's not easily accessible as like going and signing up for welfare in Section 8. You know, Section 8 and welfare, stuff like that. You just go and fill out an application anywhere, and then you just wait your turn, right? So what I'm saying is that to make funds available to that extent to the person or the people who are entrepreneurs, provided that they show you a tax ID number and they show you that their business is registered and that sort of stuff, you know that they're serious about what they do. And that's it. Make it easily accessible to them. And you'll see that there'll be a better change within the Black community. Okay. The way the grant system is set up now within the Black community, there's only like a handful of people who are getting their hands on the grants. And then you have some people who know how to write grants who don't want to write grants for other people. You know, it's just like the best kept secret. And that's not the only, that's on the other end is not the greatest thing for the Black community, because when you look at a lot of urban communities, there are a lot of businesses and nonprofit organizations, but that exist in the urban communities, but they're not the most effective for the same communities that they're in. And those are the people who have access to those grants. Okay, so, you know, that right there should tell you something. Okay, so let me move on to 50 Cent with Ja Rule. Okay, a lot of people are saying 50 Cent is petty. They think it's a joke. 50 Cent went on Groupon. So Ja Rule had a concert, was selling tickets on Groupon. I think the tickets were $15 each. Well, I don't remember, so don't quote me on how much the tickets were. 50 Cent went and purchased 200 of those tickets for the first rows. How many rows? Let's put it this way. The first 200 tickets were purchased by 50 Cent. When you look at the pictures of the concert, that area where he purchased those 200 tickets, those seats were all empty. The only person that was sitting there was 50 Cent. And then you saw people way to the back. And people thought that was funny. Okay. People attributed that to the beef that Ja Rule and 50 Cent had that was in the early 2000s, which it is a part of. Okay. And they think it's funny. I, for one, don't think it's funny. Okay. It's not a laughing matter. All right. Because 50 Cent doesn't understand. Well, let me put it this way. Not that he doesn't understand. He doesn't care that he's infringing on another man's life and crossing boundaries that appear to be very disrespectful in another man's life and what another man is trying to do. Now, 50 Cent, remember when Jay-Z and Alicia Keys did that Empire State of Mind concert? I forgot what Grammys it was when they sang that song, you know, from New York, you know, concrete state where something, I forget the words already. Anyway, remember when Lil Miss Nana went on a stage with them and she got so excited. She went on the stage and she posed next to Jay-Z while him and Alicia Keys posed on stage. Everybody beat Lil Miss Nana up about that. And they didn't realize that she was just so excited. Like, it was just like her spirit was filled with pride and everything. She didn't want to infringe on their show. I took it as she was happy about the energy and looking up to Jay-Z. Jay-Z people can feel that way about him. He, you know, you feel proud, and that's somebody that you want to be a part of in some way. You want to be attached to his growth and his positivity, his firmness, his leadership. You know, a lot of people see him as someone to follow behind in a great way. And that's how I took Lil Miss Nana when she went on stage and posed next to him and Alicia Keys at the end of the song, right? But 50 Cent didn't like that. 50 did not like that, and he thought that Jay-Z wasn't stern enough as a man, because he says there's no way a person would never think that they can come on stage and do that while I'm on stage. That's what 50 Cent said. Now I'm going to get back to the Ja Rule situation. 50 Cent will never, ever, ever allow someone he don't even have the capacity to think that a person could really like his energy that much, and it's just that they want to be next to him. He looks at it as, you're not the artist at the time that's on stage. You're the one that's supposed to be sitting in the seats and in the bleachers enjoying and watching me. Now, if you're sitting in those seats watching me, there's no way in hell you should be on the stage next to me, because you haven't earned that right to stand on the stage next to me. You see what I'm saying? So he looks at himself as somewhat superior to those who are in the seats watching him. And what does that mean that he think about them? Okay, so now you do something like this at a Ja Rule concert. It tells me that you don't respect Ja Rule. And it's okay, you don't have to respect people. But he doesn't respect him. And then he takes it upon himself to disrespect him by doing what he did. Okay, so some people are like, oh, I don't see what the big deal is because he supported him anyway. He still bought the tickets. No, here's the big deal. He stopped 200 people from talking about a Ja Rule concert. From, everything today is with these smartphones. People are at concerts and they're recording. And if you're in the front row, you're damn sure, because you got good view, you're recording. What he did was stopped people from talking about the concert, 200 people. He stopped them from recording. He stopped pictures. He stopped word of mouth, because if I went to that concert and I thought it was dope, somebody else who didn't go, I probably would create a live like now, or I would have told somebody about Ja Rule X, Y, and Z. So now, because of my hype and my word of mouth and people understanding that if I say something is pretty good, they know it's good. So now they're going to be looking out for another Ja Rule concert, or let me go buy some Ja Rule music, and I'm waiting. When is his next concert? I don't care if it's in the 2 states away, 3 states away. I'm going to go. I'm going to buy a ticket. He stopped that frenzy. He stopped 200 people. Now, here's the thing. Those 200 seats are not just 200 seats. You might as well say that it's 600 seats, because by the time that one person is done, they done shared it with everybody in their network some type of way. He stopped that. He stopped those same people that may have bought a Ja Rule t-shirt or a Ja Rule hat. He stopped the frenzy, not just 200 people. Like I said, think of that as being in the thousands. 200 multiplied by everybody's network. That's what 50 Cent stopped. Ja Rule has been out of commission and out of the business for a while. We didn't forget him, right? But we all know what happened with Murder Inc. and all of this other stuff. So now, Ja Rule, maybe due to court or whatever, he's able to start coming back up. And Ja Rule is not the only one that was affected by that, all right? Ashanti was affected by that. Charlie Baltimore was affected by that. And everybody who was a part of that whole Murder Inc. thing was affected, Irv Gotti, by all of that. So now he's starting to come back up, and this is what 50 Cent will do. 50 Cent don't have the right now, he's showing that he don't have the capacity to have empathy, let alone understanding or the restraint to just allow a person to be themselves, go through the struggle and build themselves back up. What he's showing is that he's the type of person that look for people who are trying to build themselves back up out of a struggle and help keep the noose around their neck, help make the struggle for them harder. So some people will say, well, that's what do you call it? A challenge for me. Let someone like that be in my life, and I'll even work harder. And yes, the world need people like 50 Cent, because that brings out the grit in you. Because in order for you to make it and triumph dealing with a person like a 50 Cent, you have to be grittier than that person. And that means that you're saying, like hell, you're going to keep me down. I deserve the right to be here, and I'm going to push through it. However, it's still not a good or a positive look that he does that. 50 Cent has power going on. He has a lot going on. He just dropped the album not too long. Why is it that 50 think it's okay to infringe on someone else's growth or what someone else is trying to do? And why do people in the world sit back and think that this is funny. And they call it petty. It's not petty. The things that people in the world, that people are calling petty in today's time is not petty, it's treachery. You know what petty is? Petty is small things. Petty is arguing over, oh, well, I sat there first. I sat there yesterday, so you can't sit there today because I want to sit there again today. You know, that stuff like that is petty. Petty is you put your juice in the refrigerator and you got to put your name on the juice, even though no one messes with your things, you still putting your name on things. Well, you know, people in the house don't mess with your things. Why do you think you have to put your name on it still? That's petty. You know, petty is small little things that you're making an issue off of, that the principle in itself is not a major principle. It's just little minute things that you really could just let it go. You could let it go. Okay, so this, what 50 Cent is doing, is not petty, it's treachery. All right, it's treacherous. And I think that people need to pay more attention to stuff like that, because and pay attention to words are spells. Words are spells. And what we don't realize is that the way we see things, say things, determine how we feel and think about it, how we see it. When you say things are petty, you start to see it in a small light, from a small aspect. You start to say, oh, it's not a big deal, it's just petty, it's something to laugh at, right? When in actuality, it's treacherous. Now, when you say something is treacherous, now people they're on their cues, they're looking out for what this type of treachery is. How can I protect myself from this treachery? How can I stop that from happening? Because we all know what treachery can do to us and into our lifestyles and to the people that we're connected to. You understand what I'm saying? So just be careful with what we're saying. You know, treachery, petty is not the thing with 50 Cent. You know, some people will argue that 50 has some type of mental issues. You know, Dr. Boyce Watkins says that yesterday, he said that, you know, 50 is probably dealing with mental illness, because for a person we mostly know people who are struggling to try to pull down other people, right? And he posed the idea that something is wrong with 50 Cent because he's made it. He's powerful. He has money in the bank, all of those things. And for a person to be in a powerful position is still try to bring down another person, something has to be mentally wrong with him. Here's what I say. I don't think anything is mentally wrong with 50 Cent. That's part of 50 Cent's character. You know, as a child, it would have been labeled as personality disorder, where it could have been narcissistic traits. It could have been sociopathic traits or psychotic traits that was within him that has not been balanced out. Okay, 50 Cent was stabbed up 9 times. We know, if you follow the history of him. I think Black Child did it, who was a part of the whole Ja Rule clique. When after Black Child came out of prison in, I think it was the late 90s, then he was shot 8 times or so and so. Well, let's look at why these things happen to 50 Cent. The 50 Cent that we see today is the 50 Cent that he was back then. You know, now I get that his mother was a drug dealer and he never knew who his father was, and his mother died in the gang. I get that. However, that doesn't change the things that 50 Cent been through. It influences part of who he is, but it doesn't change his core character. His core character is what it is. You know, his trauma and what he'd been through in life did not develop his core character. His core character was already like that. And what happened is his trauma influences how he goes about doing things, right? So with someone like a 50 Cent's personality, right? Like I said, narcissistic trait disorder, personality disorder, or sociopathic, psychotic, those types of disorders. What happens is when you go through trauma, that person takes on the persona as, it shouldn't have happened to me, and that this happened to me, I am going to make sure that I project this type of feeling onto other people. It's almost like, I don't know, the movie Saw, right? If I remember the whole plot of the movie, the man, this is from Saw 1. I don't remember the rest of the Saw movies, the scary movie, where the man survived a life-altering situation. And I think it was something where his co-workers were against him or some type of way where they weren't in agreement with him. However, he survived this type of tragedy. And what he did was took on the role of the aggressor and the person who set traps for those very same people. And what he did was the traps that he set had different principles to it. Like, you survived if you were able to work together as a team, or you survived if you were able to think good under pressure, or you survived if you had a sense of urgency, or you survived if you were vigilant in a time of terror and horror. Like, he set all these traps, and your destiny, your life would have been saved contingent upon you were able to perform in the way that trap was set up, so that you and everybody that you were with survived. You get what I'm saying? Whereas, and that's the type of personality trait that I see in 50 Cent when he does the things that he does, and nobody's off limits. You get what I'm saying? Some people say that he's cool, and I'm not saying that he's not cool. He's cool when he chooses or wants to be cool, right? The moment he gets in his head that he doesn't like you for whatever the reason is, whatever his personal reason is, if he doesn't like you, he automatically thinks that you should be disrespected. And what happens with that is that he goes about his way to disrespect you. Now, here's the thing. You're crossing too many boundaries, right? If I don't like somebody, that's my business. That's not that person's business. If I don't respect a person, that's my business. That has nothing to do with that person. That's me, because that person is who they are. So what I do is that I refrain from having interactions with that person, but I don't disrespect that person. Because here's the thing, that person has every right to stand up for themselves. They shouldn't take you disrespecting them, because they don't see themselves in the light that you see them. They may think highly of themselves. They don't see themselves like that. So why that person is not going to allow you to do that to them, you're going to create a problem. And that's what 50 Cent don't understand. And the problem with that is 50 is too old to not understand that. He's not 14. All right, 50 is what? He's in his 40s. So you're grown and you have children, and still in all, you're setting the tone and the boundaries to disrespect. You're making it okay to disrespect people who you don't like or who you think you can do it to. You just do it, and you think it's okay. And the world laugh at it and they say that it's petty. But let me tell you this, in the Black community, I can't speak for the white community. In the Black community, somebody like 50 Cent will be shot up again. This is why we have a lot of Black people killing one another in the Black community, because we haven't learned not to cross boundaries. We haven't learned not to cross boundaries. So I don't see how that what 50 Cent is doing is a positive thing. It's not. And then there's a lot of people in the Black community who like 50 Cent. So now let's look at that. Now they like that he does, which means that that's part of how they act and do to other people. And this is the problem that we're seeing in the urban community. Then we turn around and we blame it all on the white man. It's the white man's fault. Well, no, let's look at the things that we like. Look at the things that we gravitate to. We gravitate to things that tells us it's okay to infringe on someone else's life, to infringe on someone else's personal space and how someone else lives for them, which has absolutely nothing to do with you. We sell that and we live by that. We think it's okay. But the problem lies in the person who retaliates, because it's not okay. It's not okay. You know, we haven't heard from Ja Rule yet, and maybe he's furious. That's why we haven't heard from him, you know, because they both come from street type of mentality. So that should tell you right then and there what Ja Rule is actually even thinking about all of this shit. And because he's trying to build himself back up, he can't afford to allow his energy to go in that direction. Right? So now we all know 50 likes to do things to keep himself relevant. So that's a tactic as well. So in the tactic, he hasn't learned to say, okay, I can keep myself relevant by empowering another Black person. No, you know, because it will work. You can keep yourself relevant by attaching yourself to what someone else does, but empowering them and bringing them along the way. But 50 don't like that. Anytime he attaches himself to someone, what someone else is doing to build himself up, it's always seen in the light of him trying to break someone else down. Okay, so here's my take on that. Ja Rule, I will insist that you take on the role or the tactic of becoming the aggressor. Just take on that tactic. You become the bad guy. You create memes out of what 50 Cent has done. You create t-shirts out of that, and you make that a message. You sell that as a message that opposes what he has done. In this case, it needs to be a polar opposite. But in order for 50 Cent to learn to have some respect and just leave you alone in your come up and what you're trying to do, what you need to do is turn the tables and use that as an opportunity to turn the tables back at him. Because see, what happened is 50 Cent has gone on for so many years doing what he has done, but no one has yet to call out his character or reveal the tactics that he's doing. You know, a lot of people know he likes the 48 Laws of Power. And if you're like me, I got the book, The 50th Law of Power, who was written by the same author, Robert Greene. And Robert Greene and 50 Cent had a good relationship where Robert Greene was allowed to follow 50, I think, for about over a year. While he was writing this book, you know, he spent time with 50 during 50 Cent's business meetings and, you know, staying at home with 50. See, just seeing how 50 conducts business and how 50 Cent carried himself. And that's how he came up with the 50th Law of Power. So that's, you know, what I know when I did the research about that book. Ja Rule, I ask you to, you know, play the game and turn the tables on Fifth. That's all. And no one has yet to do that but Jay-Z. Oh, Rick Ross has done it too, you know. So 50 Cent, you know, Jay-Z, and this again, this is what I love with he doesn't have time to go back and forth like that, you know. So we haven't even seen how Jay-Z handled that. We just know that 50 Cent understands that Jay-Z is not the kind of person you're going to do that kind of crap with. He doesn't have time for it, right? We did see how Rick Ross used it to his advantage, all right? Ja Rule, I ask that you use this to your advantage as well, okay? And then I'm going to keep it moving. Last but not least is abortion rights. Ever so often, every couple of years, you know, we see women's abortion rights on the chopping block. You know, there are women who are against it, and there are a whole lot of men who are against it. Some women are pro-choice. Other women are like, well, no, you're killing a child. Men are like, you're killing a child, and you don't have the right to do that. It's God's intention, God's will. Let me just say this, okay? I'm going to stick with being pro-choice, all right? I think that there are too many people in the world that is concerning themselves with the decision-making process of women, even women, you know? And a lot of those very same women don't understand how they contribute to the to the masses, to the society, which says that women don't have the right to make decisions for themselves. They don't understand that because they're stuck in a brainwash in being the nurturer and believing that the moment you get pregnant, you're supposed to keep that child. Okay. Now I understand how you feel about that. And I can't take that away from you. All right. But I am all for, I agree to a certain extent. Here's what I think. And I've said this before, and I'm going to continue to say it. I do believe that there should be a cap on when we give like abortions to women. Like, I don't believe that women should be able to have an abortion at 6 months pregnant. Like, some are going in there 5 months, 6 months pregnant, 4 months pregnant. I think that's ridiculous. It is ridiculous because it's a baby. That's a baby. It's a developed child. Okay. 3 months pregnant is ridiculous because you've finished the first trimester and you're getting ready to go on to the second trimester. It's ridiculous. All right. You've been knew whether you wanted to have this child or not. And, that's really taking the life of a child, and you're just sitting here playing around with life, not taking life serious enough. And then you're handling it like you're a child. Like, oh, do I want to go to the concert or no? So somebody bought you tickets and you sat the tickets down on the table and you looked at it. I don't think I want to go to the concert. I don't think I want to go to the concert. Then on the very last day, you say, oh, I'm not going to go to the concert. Right. And on that last day, when you say you're not going to go to the concert, guess what? It's too late for that person to take the ticket and give to somebody else because you waited until the last moment. You see, this is not a situation like this. This is a child. This is a life. And too often, many of us are not respecting, I say again and again, we're not respecting the principles and just the essence of spirituality and the being and why we're here to begin with. So take that with more of a seriousness. Okay. Yes, you have the ability to bring life into this world. Yes, it's growing from within you, but you are wrong when you sit here and you go back and forth as if you're not carrying a living thing within you. So that is where I agree with the masses or the majority who's against abortion. I agree with it when we have people who take on this mindset of not taking it serious. I agree. Okay, hold on a second. Let me see what's going on. Okay. That's where I agree with the masses. Okay. But let me say this. All right. The world needs to get to the point where we understand that women have purposes outside of just bringing children into the world, being nurturers and raisers of children and community. There's more to women than just that. We've seen that with Oprah Winfrey. We've seen that with Toni Morrison. We've seen that with Maya Angelou. There are so many great women who have done powerful things in this world that is needed, not just for women, but for the world from a balanced perspective. Everyone living was able to profit by something that these women said or did. And it had nothing to do with them being mothers and child bearers, and everything to do with their perspective and what their purpose is for this world. Okay. Too often we don't understand that. And too often, too many men don't care to understand that because they were taught from old teachings, taught men that men are the ones who set the tone and men are the ones who have the purpose to conquer the world. Right. That's true. But men are not the only one who have purpose, and they're not the only sex or only species who have the purpose to conquer parts of the world. Women have purpose to conquer parts of the world too, not in the way that men have, but women have. Okay. Now let me explain what I mean by that before some of you get upset and we try to argue that point. Let me go get some candy. Hold on. Hold on. Now, here's what I mean. Besides male and female, God has created masculine energy and feminine energy. Let me say it again. Masculine energy, feminine energy. Because as I said before, there needs to be balance. And if we had too much masculine energy, then we would also have too much brute force, too much cerebral, logical brute force that would be incapable of seeing the human aspect to things, incapable of seeing the feeling aspect to things. That's where the feminine energy comes from. The feminine energy is just as powerful as masculine energy, just in a different way. It is not masculine. Feminine energy provides the softness, the intuitiveness, the nurturing, the loving part. That's feminine energy. It's just as powerful, and it's here to balance out the masculine energy. That's God's doing. Masculine energy, masculine, feminine energy. Check this out. The elements of the zodiac signs. There's 4 elements, right? Fire, air, earth, water, right? 4 elements. Do understand that anybody who is of the water and earth element represents feminine energy. They carry feminine energy. Majority feminine energy. The earth and water signs are water signs: Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Earth signs: Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. Those are feminine energies. Feminine elements. The masculine elements are the air and fire signs. Air signs being Aquarius, Libra, Gemini. Fire signs being Aries, Sagittarius, Leo. Check this out. Don't we have men and women born in both in both groups and elements, in all groups and elements? Like there are some women who are Tauruses or earth signs or water signs, as there are women who are of the masculine energy, fire and air signs, and the same thing with men. So that's how God created us, to balance out. Now you're gonna have some men that's like, listen, I don't care about all that. I'm masculine because I'm a man. Well, let's look at some of the cockiest men. Some of the most over-the-top men have feminine energy in their chart. Sun, moon, or rising sign is feminine energy. Not saying that they're feminine energy. Like Puffy is a Scorpio. That's feminine. Ike Turner is a Scorpio. I think The Rock is a Scorpio. I'm not sure. 50 Cent is a Cancer. Charlemagne the God is a Cancer. I mean, Dame Dash is a Taurus. I can go on and on and on. I'm not saying that they're not masculine men, but because they are within the feminine element, their movements is based off of how they feel and their intuition. And because they're men, their ego kick in and they may do things overboard because of how they feel. Because what happens with the emotion will allow you to blow things out of proportion, and it may not be that bad. That's why the masculine, the cerebral, the logic is also needed to balance it out. Logic is the one to ask the question, like, is that really how it happened? Is that really what we should be doing? That's what the logic will say. You understand? Who are the masculine signs? Jay-Z's a Sagittarius, masculine energy. Russell Wilson is a Libra. That's masculine. Jamie Foxx, Sagittarius, that's masculine. What's his name? Barack Obama is a Leo, that's masculine energy. President Trump, although you don't like him, is an air sign. He's a Gemini, masculine energy. But as you can see, Trump doesn't allow himself to get so emotional. Like, to him, everything is a goddamn joke. He's calm, cool as a fan about everything. Even about some of the nonsense that he say. He stays stuff and the rest of the world gets worked up, but he's not getting worked up. Okay? So I say this to say that men thinking that they're the only ones who has this ego and this energy to conquer the world is not necessarily true. And how God created us. He created us in a way so that we can balance each other out. And in doing so, the balance, the yin to the yang, also need to be able to step up and conquer some things in this world. Because the yin speak for those who it represents. The yang can only speak to those that they represent. Make sense? Because people do things in polarity, they don't take complexity and in between into account. So anyone who does not fall within that umbrella is not going to be taken care of by whatever it is that you're teaching or having to provide. This is why the balance is necessary. This is why women are necessary to help in leadership and project their voice, vindicate themselves, tell their story, tell how they overcame. Okay? The other thing is, anytime a woman feels as if she is not purposeful or fulfilling her purpose, she becomes depressed. She becomes unhappy. Okay? What kind of life can an unhappy and depressed person live where nothing you can do can make them happy or change from that because they're not living their purpose? Too often, the world will understand that, and you jam women into predicaments and lifestyles that they have to live until the day they die, where they're not living the greatest expression of who they are, and they're not fulfilling a purpose outside of raising a child. Okay? Who are you outside of being a mother and someone's wife or someone's children's mother? Who are you? Who are you? You have some people that think that their greatest accomplishments are their children. Not that, let me clarify that. Not that having children is not a great accomplishment. And for those of you who turned out to be spiritual parents, balanced parents, and allow your children to grow in a way in which you weren't allowed to grow, that's different, because you still gained a purpose by learning better of who you are and how things can be done better. That's different. So I'm not talking about that population. I'm talking about the people who think that their greatest accomplishment is having children. That means that they're basically saying that they had no other purpose or no other reason to be here other than to have children. And they really don't believe that, because some of those same women are not happy. Because deep down they feel like they should be doing something else. Not that they shouldn't be the mothers that they are. No, yes, they should. However, there's something else that they should be doing, which they're not, because society teaches women, and they believe they took that indoctrination, and they believe that they are not here to do nothing else but to be a mother. And that's it. So that means that anything that they personally feel like they should be doing, their personal needs don't need to be met. It doesn't need to be taken into consideration. It doesn't need to be looked after, respected, none of that. If it has nothing to do with them needing things to be a certain way to take care of the kids, it shouldn't be met. Like, prime example, you're a mother, and for Mother's Day, you might get a pot set, a cooking set. But that's not for you, because you're a mother. That's for you to cook for the fucking kids and your husband, right? But what if you like to write? So for Mother's Day, the gift that will make you happy, that will contribute to your purpose and a little bit of your creativity, will be for somebody to buy you a fine ass book on poetry or a book on writing, and to give you a nice notebook with a nice pen and a bookmark, things for you to put on your desk at home that will make you happy to sit down and write. That has absolutely nothing to do with you being a mother or you being a wife. It has everything to do with what you personally like. You see what I'm saying? And too often, the world has taught women that the things that you personally like is not important, because it has nothing to do with procreation. And you're only good to procreate. If that was true, God wouldn't have given women a G-spot. A G-spot which has so many different nerve endings that, once aroused, the level of pleasure that a woman feels from that is out of this world. If God only created women to procreate, then we wouldn't have these feelings, because we would just be a box so that men can go there, have sex, ejaculate in, so then we can pop out a child. We wouldn't have these feelings. Okay? But it's a man's ego and ignorance and unwillingness to want to respect the fact that women have a purpose in this world as well. And a lot of you women who are against abortion, and some of the arguments that you give contribute to that very same message. It contributes to your own downfall. Some of those women who are on those picket lines advocating to get rid of abortion, when we look at you and what you're doing with your life, a lot of you are just mothers. A lot of you are mothers. You go to the school, you volunteer your time at the school, which is a good thing. But everything you do is circled around you being a mother and a wife. You do nothing else for yourself. And you're okay with that. That's fine. However, there's other women that's not okay with that. Like the women who have been sexually abused, who found the courage to speak out against that and tell their story in pain, is needed, because she is needed to empower the rest of us who have went through that. Like, I was sexually abused. You know who gave me hope? Oprah Winfrey gave me hope. She was the first person I'd ever heard speak out of her mouth and had people on her show that talked about being sexually abused and raped. And while her show was going on, when they were having those discussions, I was still dealing with it. Still dealing with it. Sit and watch Oprah with my grandmother who knows that it's happening, and we would still, and I thought that things would change for me. I felt so goddamn happy, so happy that someone was having this conversation. And I thought that things would change in the household. It didn't. And what I've learned is it didn't change in the household because there was nobody to come and point at you and say, listen, you're allowing your child to do A, B, and C. And we need that to stop because it's hurting your child. This other person that's sitting right here, until things are directly pointed at a person where they have to deal with them, they won't change. They'll sit here and take the message as, oh, this message is for somebody else. Because they live by that thing of, if it's happening in the dark and nobody knows about it, nobody will know. So I don't have to be held accountable. However, she still gave me hope. When I wrote my book, the hope I got was based off of how many people Oprah helped, including me, and giving me the hope and the courage to write this book. It gave me the courage to say, I'm not putting the pen down and I'm writing the book. Let me get the book. Gave me hope. I didn't put the pen down. I wrote the book, and it wasn't just for me. It was a catalyst. It was part of my healing process. This happened while I was in counseling. But I didn't only think about me. This is me. The little girl in the front is not me. All right? I thought about other people that has gone through this, and they need help. They need empowerment out of it. Okay? And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with today. All right? Women, it's okay to have, I'm all for abortion rights. I am not for women not taking it seriously. And I'm not for women having abortions from 3 months on. I am not for that because you waited too long and this is a life. Please respect the essence of what you're supposed to be here for and respect the essence of the fact that you're carrying a life within you. And you need to take your life with a seriousness and make better precautions. Take better precautions. Use birth control. There's the morning after pill that you can use. You see what I'm saying? But when it gets to the point where you're having an abortion, you need to get that done and taken care of ASAP. Okay? So I am all for that. However, please, please, please take in mind that if you guys was to ever do away with abortion, what's going to happen is we're going to go back to the way we used to do it before abortion became legal. People used to go to midwives and get it done. Women used to go shoving hangers up in their vaginas to get rid of the kids. But abortion became legal because of stuff like that. Okay? When we looked at what happened in Africa, when they took, what was it, the 20-something girls, those men just kidnapped 20-something girls. By the time they found the girls back, half of the girls were pregnant. Prepped them for how many months, they came back with big bellies. And those men thought it was okay to do that. Just to have a child with a young girl as a child. And you didn't respect the fact that she needs to have a school and take her education. You just think that she's just here to be a child bearer and for you. You know what's so disgusting before I go? What's so disgusting is these older men have access to so many women that's their age that are having children for them that you don't even realize you're infringing on the crop for the younger guys to come. You're damaging the young girls. A 13-year-old, which she should be with a 13-year-old boy. So what's happening is you're creating a system that you're damaging people for the young men that got to come after you, that have to procreate after you, and they have to deal with your damages. And you don't care about that. You know why? Because you think that you're here to conquer, and your idea of conquer is so small that you think that conquering for you is just by conquering women and getting as many girls and females pregnant. You don't have the ability to, you're not really a master at conquering because you don't prosper when it comes to women your age, because you haven't upped the ante or leveled up on your thought process and how you've matured or how you've grown. So you want young girls who don't have the right self-advocacy. They don't know enough about life to even understand how to speak to you when you speak to them in a certain way. If they're easily manipulated, you talk to them like you're their father because you're 15 and 20 years older, and they don't really have a comeback to say to you because they're still children. That's what you like, and that's what you think is okay. But then I say again, as I always say, all you care about is procreation, right? Let's say that all you care about is having children. Well, this is to tell you how small-minded some of you men think, okay? Let's say all you think that women are here to procreate, and that's all you want. If you're the master of having women have children for you, procreation and lineage, you should also respect bloodline. You should also respect intelligence. You should also respect genetic codes. All of that, right? So what kind of children are you bringing into this world? What kind of information are you giving them? What kind of people will they grow up to be? If you just procreate and left her to make a child for you, and you're not in that child's life, how is that child going to actually carry on your lineage, your bloodline, other than being a part of your bloodline? Because we're not animals, we're human beings, right? How do that person carry on your legacy or honor you or do anything great in this world when you're not caring about the type of woman that you're choosing or selecting to procreate with? Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that any of these girls are defective, but what I'm saying is that they're girls and they haven't matured to their greatest, they haven't reached their zenith yet. So they have no set plan on how and the type of information they're going to feed their child, other than they have to feed their children food and they have to go to school and so on and so forth. There's no other plan or strategy to growing the most powerful children or the most powerful beings to leave a powerful lineage. So to me, you're defeating the purpose. Although you think that women are here to just have children, you're even defeating the purpose of procreation because you don't know how to leave a powerful legacy. You don't understand what it takes or what type of foundation helps to build a powerful legacy. So you're defeating the purpose. It's just very small. It's very small, and it just tells me that you're thinking from a very ridiculous point of view. And that point of view is to just get as much people pregnant as you can, just so you can have a lot of children in the world. That's it. It's stupid. It's real stupid. All right. So I'm gonna leave you with that. If you wanted to know more about what I was talking about, I have a video up here that tells you exactly what I mean by that. When you guys mentioned the lions in the animal kingdom, I mentioned on a previous recording that lions, they do their due diligence, the male lion. When you don't see them with the pride, it's because they're securing borders from miles out. We don't know how many fights and how many battles they get into to prevent other males from coming into the borders. So what happens is that those females, the pride, is able to hunt in peace and get food in peace without getting bombarded and interact and you know what I'm saying, by other lion prides, other males, and by the hyenas. And the hyenas still make it because there's only but so many male lions to walk the borders. You see what I'm saying? So when that male lion decides to come and check in on the family, yes, he's the first to eat, and he has to eat first because he did a lot of work on his own. And I also mentioned, remember that lions are the best when they hunt together. Who knows how that male lion has been eating and taking care of itself since he's not with the pride? You see what I'm saying? So, he get what he can get, but a lot of times I'm quite sure he's not eating the way he's supposed to eat because he's doing his job to making sure that the family is protected by watching the borders, right? But when you men think that women are only here for procreation and you don't leave a good foundation, you just impregnate a woman and then you go on to the next because all she's here to do is procreate. You haven't done anything like that to protect that woman, that child, to give a firm foundation. You haven't done anything like that. Why so many of us has been sexually abused is because you didn't have a child with a woman and you left, right? And now what happens is you left her open to another man who don't care about your child. And that other man said, well, I'm going to sexually abuse that child because it ain't my child. No way. And since they think small like you and they think about conquering, to them, that's like they conquered something because they sexually abused the child. That's how ridiculous a lot of you think. And I'm not a feminist and I'm not a sexist. I'm not any of that. I'm just speaking raw facts for you who even, because like I said again, if you think that women are all about just procreating, you haven't even mastered that. You haven't even laid a great foundation for the procreation process to be a powerful process. So to me, you fail from every aspect and you don't even realize it. Think up. Better understandings, deeper understandings, level up. It's not all about your nut sack. It's not all about your penis. It's not all about procreation. Okay? Because if you don't have the best information, if that woman is not the healthiest, that child is not going to come out healthy. When women are stressed when they're pregnant, the child is born with ADHD. They're born with all kinds of defects. And you don't realize it. Because she's just here to procreate. You don't realize how the environment affects the very same child you just want her to bring into this world. If you knew that, then you would know that what you're advocating for is the detriment to your powerful lineage. You would create a different foundation. And what you're saying will be from a completely different perspective. Trust me on that. Okay? So I'm going to leave you guys with that, and I'm out. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about relationships tomorrow, and who we should be for ourselves in relationships. Tomorrow at noon, same time. Until then, peace all.